Andre Fletcher built his restaurant from nothing. 12 years. His grandmother's recipes on every plate. Then the one-star reviews flooded in. Revenue dropped 40%. The food hadn't changed. Something was rotting from the inside. He shaved his beard, put on a janitor uniform, and walked through the back door of his own restaurant as a cleaner named James. First morning, the manager grabbed his collar, slammed him into a wall, threw a mop at his chest, called him trash. The servers laughed. No one flinched like they'd seen it before. Black employees worked dawn shifts, hauling garbage. White employees worked evenings, collecting tips. Same restaurant, different rules. That was day one. Here's what his manager didn't know. The janitor he just humiliated signed his paychecks, and Andre Fletcher was done watching. 2 weeks before that mop hit his chest, Andre Fletcher sat in his living room staring at his laptop. 47 one-star reviews in 90 days. Revenue down 40%. His accountant had stopped sugarcoating it. Andre, if this keeps up, you've got maybe 6 months. 6 months. 12 years of work. His grandmother's recipes. The food truck behind the gas station. The 18-hour days. The first dollar bill framed on his office wall. All of it 6 months from gone. He could have fired everyone, started fresh, but that wouldn't answer the question that kept him up at night. Why? The food hadn't changed. The recipes were the same ones his grandmother taught him when he was 9 years old, standing on a step stool in her kitchen in South Atlanta. The equipment was top of the line. He'd invested over $200,000 in renovations just last year. Something was rotting from the inside, and he couldn't see it from the top. He called Elaine Porter, law school friend, sharp, blunt, the kind of person who'd tell you your house was on fire while everyone else was complimenting the curtains. "I want to go in undercover," he said. Elaine was quiet for 3 seconds. That was long for her. As what? Janitor. New hire. Nobody looks at the janitor. Andre, you built that place. Someone will recognize you. Not if I do it right. He shaved his beard, cut his hair short, bought second-hand clothes from a thrift store on the south side, worn jeans, a faded gray t-shirt, work boots with scuffed toes, reading glasses he didn't need. He changed the way he walked, slower, shoulders down, eyes low, voice quieter. He created a fake name, James. No last name on the application. Burner email. No references. He submitted it online on a Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, his phone rang. Greg Holloway, his general manager. The man he paid $95,000 a year to run Fletcher's table while Andre handled expansion plans. The interview lasted less than 2 minutes. Can you start Monday? No background check. No references. No questions about experience. No questions at all. Andre almost laughed. A stranger with no history, no verifiable identity, and Greg hired him in 90 seconds. That alone told him something was deeply wrong. Then he made one more call. To Greg himself. Different phone. His real voice. Greg, I'm heading out of town for a couple weeks. Business meetings in Chicago. You've got things covered? Greg's voice shifted. Lighter. Almost cheerful. Absolutely, boss. Take your time. Enjoy Chicago. I've got everything under control. I've got everything under control. Andre hung up, sat with those words for a long time. A manager who hires a stranger without blinking. A manager who sounds relieved when the owner leaves town. A manager who says, "I've got everything under control," like he's been rehearsing the line. That night, Andre stood in his bathroom, looked in the mirror. The man staring back at him wore a janitor's uniform, 2 sizes too big. No watch, no ring, no sign of the person who owned a 200-seat restaurant in the heart of Atlanta. He didn't recognize himself. Good. That was the point. Monday morning, he would walk through the back entrance of his own restaurant, not as Andre Fletcher, the owner, not as the man whose name was on the sign outside, just James, the new cleaner, the man nobody would bother to look at. He turned off the light. Monday, 5 a.m. Andre walked through the back entrance of his own restaurant for the first time in 12 years. No one greeted him. No one looked up. A cook unloading boxes pointed at a closet at the end of the hall without saying a word. He opened the door. A mop, 2 buckets. A shelf of cleaning supplies with half the labels peeled off. No locker, no hook for a jacket, just a bare light bulb hanging from a wire. This was where the janitor belonged. He put his bag on the floor and got to work. The kitchen shocked him first. Grease caked on the vent hoods, weeks of buildup, maybe longer. Trash cans overflowing from the night before. A puddle of something brown near the walk-in cooler that no one had bothered to wipe up. He'd spent $200,000 renovating this kitchen 18 months ago. It looked like no one had touched it since the last inspection. Andre grabbed a rag and started wiping down the prep stations. A woman walked past him, then stopped, turned around, looked at him for a long moment. "You're the new janitor?" "Yes, ma'am." "Patrice, sous chef, 6 years." She didn't smile. She leaned in closer, lowered her voice to barely a whisper. "Keep your head down. Don't talk to Greg unless he talks to you first. Don't ask questions. Don't make suggestions. Just do what he says and stay out of his way." "That bad?" She looked over her shoulder, then back at him. "Worse." She walked away without another word. Andre stood there with the rag in his hand, staring at the back of a woman who'd been cooking in his kitchen for 6 years and was afraid of the man he'd hired to manage it. 10 a.m. 2 hours late. Greg Holloway walked in through the front entrance. No apology, no rush. Andre was mopping the hallway near the office. Greg passed within 3 feet of him, didn't look at him, didn't nod, didn't acknowledge he existed. Walked straight past like he was part of the wall. Then Greg saw 2 white servers setting up the dining room. "Morning, guys. How was the weekend?" "Katie, love the new hair. You look fantastic." Smiles, laughter, first names, eye contact, warmth. Andre tightened his grip on the mop and kept working. 11:30. Lunch prep. Andre was emptying trash near the kitchen when he heard Greg's voice cut through the noise like a blade. "Patrice, come here, now." She walked over, wiping her hands on her apron, calm, professional. "What is this?" Greg held up a tasting spoon. His face was twisted in disgust. "The house sauce, same recipe as always." "This is too salty, way too salty. Can you not taste? What the hell is wrong with you?" Chef, I made it the same way I've made it for 6. Don't argue with me. Remake it. All of it. And if you can't get something this basic right, maybe I need to find someone who can. There's a line of people outside who'd kill for your job. He tossed the spoon into the sink. It clattered against the metal. The kitchen went dead silent. Every cook stared at their station. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. Patrice nodded once, turned back to her pot. Her jaw was tight. Her hands were steady. But Andre saw her eyes. He knew that look. The look of someone swallowing something that should never have to be swallowed. He waited until Greg walked away. Then he grabbed a clean spoon from the rack, dipped it into Patrice's sauce, and tasted it. Perfect. Rich. Balanced. Exactly the way his grandmother made it. The sauce wasn't the problem. Greg was. The rest of the day was more of the same. Greg barked orders at every black employee without using their names. "Hey you! New guy! The girl in the back!" But every white staff member got a smile, a first name, a conversation about their weekend. At 7 p.m., Andre clocked out, walked to his car, sat behind the wheel in the dark. Didn't start the engine. His hands were shaking. Not from anger, from something worse. From the slow, sickening realization that the man he trusted, the man he gave authority, a title, a key to everything he'd ever built, was destroying it from the inside and enjoying every minute of it. Andre pulled out his phone, opened a notes app, typed 2 words. Day 1. He stared at the screen for a long time, then added one more. Worse. Day 2 started with a schedule taped to the break room wall. Andre noticed it while refilling his bucket. 2 columns. Morning shift, evening shift. He read the names twice to make sure he wasn't imagining it. Every black employee morning. Every white employee evening. Morning shift meant arriving at 5 a.m., hauling deliveries, scrubbing floors, prepping in a kitchen no customer would ever see. No tips, no front-of-house interaction, just heavy, invisible labor. Evening shift meant the dining room, the bar, the well-dressed customers, the credit cards and cocktails. Friday night tips that could run $200–300 per server. The kind of shift people fought for. Andre stared at the schedule. Every single week, the same split. Not one crossover, not one exception. Like it was designed. He was still staring when he heard Greg's voice behind him in the hallway. Greg was walking with 2 white servers toward the dining room, his arm draped over one of their shoulders like they were old friends. "Listen, I'm not saying anything out loud, but our clientele, they prefer a certain look out front. You understand what I'm saying. It's not personal. It's just business." The server nodded, didn't question it, didn't blink. "You guys are the face of this restaurant. That's why you're out here. The others, they're better in the back. Trust me. Everyone's where they should be." Andre's knuckles went white around the mop handle. He turned his face toward the wall and kept mopping. His throat burned with words he couldn't say. The rest of day 2, Greg ran him like a machine. Bathrooms, dumpsters, grease traps, loading dock. The heaviest, dirtiest jobs, back to back, no pause. When Andre finally asked about a break, Greg stopped mid-step, turned around slowly, looked at him like he'd asked for a promotion. "Break? You just started, James. Earn it." He walked away without waiting for a response. Andre hadn't taken a 15-minute break in 8 straight hours. He looked around the kitchen. Patrice was on hour 9. Derek, a line cook who'd been there 4 years, was on hour 10. Neither of them had stopped either. Down the hall through the glass partition, Andre could see two white servers sitting in the dining room, scrolling through their phones, laughing about something. Their shift didn't start for another 2 hours, but they were already clocked in, already getting paid to do nothing. Andre said nothing. He picked up the mop and went back to the bathrooms. Day 3 broke something in him. He was wiping down the hallway outside Greg's office. The door was open, just a crack, just enough to hear every word. Greg was on the phone, laughing, relaxed. His feet were up on the desk. Andre could see the sole of his shoe through the gap in the door. "No, I'm telling you it's easy. The guy checks in once a month, sometimes not even that. He calls, asks how things are going. I say great, and he hangs up. That's it. Every time." A pause. Laughter from the other end of the line. "Look, the owner, he doesn't know what he's doing. He never did. He got lucky with a food truck and thinks that makes him a businessman. These people, man, they can cook. I'll give them that. But run a business, please. Come on." These people. Andre stood frozen outside that door, one hand on the rag, one hand flat against the wall. His jaw locked so tight he could feel his molars grinding against each other. He wanted to kick that door open. He wanted to walk in there and say his name out loud and watch Greg's face collapse in on itself. But he didn't move. He breathed, stepped back, kept wiping. That afternoon, he found Patrice alone in the walk-in cooler, organizing inventory. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with a good night's sleep, the kind that lives in your bones. "How long has it been like this?" he asked quietly. She didn't look up. "Since Greg took over day to day. About a year." "Anyone ever report it?" She almost laughed. Almost. To who Greg tells everyone he's Andre's right hand. "I talk to Andre every day. Andre trusts me completely." That's his favorite line. His shield. Anyone who pushes back, he makes their life hell until they quit. Then he tells Andre they left for personal reasons. "How many have quit?" 3, in 2 months. Best people we had. Janice ran the dessert station for 4 years. Walked out on a Tuesday. Didn't even finish her shift. Greg told Andre she had family issues. Why didn't anyone go directly to Andre? Patrice finally looked at him, something heavy and sad behind her eyes. Because no one has Andre's number, not his real one. Everything goes through Greg. Phone calls, emails, schedules, complaints, all of it. He set it up that way on purpose. Andre doesn't know. He probably thinks we don't care enough to reach out. Andre felt his chest tighten, like someone had wrapped a belt around his ribs and pulled. His own employees, the people he'd hired, trained, worked alongside, couldn't reach him. Greg had built a wall between Andre and his own restaurant, brick by brick. And Andre had handed him the mortar. He walked back to the supply closet, closed the door, pulled out the phone hidden in his back pocket. Opened the voice recorder. From now on, he was recording everything. He texted Elaine 2 words. "It's bad." She replied in 10 seconds. How bad? He thought about the schedule on the wall, the phone call, Patrice's face in the cooler light, the 3 people who walked away because they couldn't reach their own boss. He typed back, "Worse than I thought, and I'm only on day 3. Day 4. Greg left for lunch at noon. Said he'd be back in an hour. Andre had learned by now Greg's hour meant 2, sometimes 3. Nobody questioned it. Nobody dared. The moment Greg's car pulled out of the lot, Andre grabbed his cleaning cart and wheeled it down the hall toward the office. He'd cleaned this hallway a dozen times already this week. Nobody would look twice at the janitor pushing a mop bucket. He pushed the office door open, sprayed the desk with glass cleaner, started wiping. Then he opened the top drawer. Invoices, stacks of them, neatly organized in folders with colored tabs. Andre pulled the first one out. Valley Ridge Foods. He'd never heard the name in his life. He scanned the invoice. Ground beef, bulk chicken, pork ribs, seasonal produce, all the staples Fletcher's table ran on every single day. He checked the prices, then checked them again. 60% cheaper than what Andre was paying his original suppliers. He pulled out another invoice. Same company, different month. Then another, and another. 4 months of orders from a supplier Andre had never approved, never heard of, never signed a contract with. Andre set the invoices down, pulled out his phone, searched Valley Ridge Foods, and found their website. Bare bones, no customer reviews, domain registered 6 months ago. He clicked on the product page. Grade C meat, bottom shelf produce, the kind of ingredients a school cafeteria would think twice about. His restaurant, the restaurant that built its name on his grandmother's recipes, on hand-selected prime cuts, on vegetables from a family farm in South Georgia he'd visited personally every spring, was now serving food from a company that didn't exist a year ago. This was why the reviews changed. Not the recipes, not the cooking, not the staff. The ingredients. Someone had ripped the foundation out from under the entire menu, and no one told him, because the only person who could tell him was the person who did it. Andre kept digging. Second drawer, more folders. He found the original supplier contracts: Harris Family Meats, Dawson Produce, Southern Grain Company, companies he'd built relationships with over a decade. Every single one had a termination letter attached, signed by Greg Holloway, dated within the same 2-week window 4 months ago. Greg hadn't just switched one supplier. He'd gutted the entire supply chain in 14 days, quietly, completely, without a single phone call to Andre. Andre did the math in his head. Original suppliers cost the restaurant roughly $32,000 a month. Valley Ridge was billing $17,000. That was a $15,000 gap. Every month. For 4 months. $60,000. But the restaurant's books still showed the original spending levels. Andre had reviewed the monthly reports Greg emailed him. The food cost line hadn't moved, which meant the money was going somewhere, just not back into the restaurant. He found the answer in the bottom drawer, a manila envelope. Inside, incorporation papers for an LLC called HG Hospitality, filed in Delaware. 6 months ago, registered to one person, Gregory P. Holloway. Andre read it 3 times. Then he photographed every page, every invoice, every termination letter, every line of the LLC filing. His hands were steady now. The shaking from day 1 was gone. Something colder and sharper had taken its place. He slid everything back exactly where he found it, wiped the drawer handles, sprayed the desk one more time for good measure, wheeled his cart back into the hallway. To anyone watching, the janitor had just cleaned the office. Nothing more. He walked to the parking lot during his break, the break Greg never officially approved, and sat in his car, opened his email, attached every photo, sent them to Elaine with one line: "He's stealing from me." His phone buzzed 40 seconds later, Elaine calling. "I'm looking at the photos now." "And?" "This is embezzlement, Andre, clear as day. The LLC, the fake supplier, the doctored reports. He's siphoning profit through a shell company he owns." "How much?" "Based on what you've sent, at least $60,000. Probably more once we run a full audit." Andre closed his eyes. $60,000. Stolen from a restaurant his grandmother dreamed about but never lived to see. By a man Andre shook hands with every Monday morning for 3 years. What do I do? Keep going. Don't confront him. Don't change anything about your behavior. I need more bank statements, communication with the supplier, anything that proves this was intentional and systematic. How long? End of the week. I want this airtight. When we move on him, I don't want a single crack he can slip through. Andre hung up, sat in the silence of his car for a long time. $60,000. That was more than Patrice made in a year. More than Derek made in a year. Greg was pocketing their combined annual salaries in stolen money while telling them to be grateful they had jobs at all. Andre looked at his reflection in the rearview mirror. The janitor stared back. Tired eyes, cleaning solution stains on his collar. A man nobody in that building thought twice about. 3 more days. He walked back through the rear entrance, picked up his mop. Greg returned from lunch at 2:45. 2 hours and 45 minutes. He strolled past Andre without a glance. "Office looks good, James. See? You can do something right when you try." Andre nodded. "Thank you, sir." Day 5. The day Andre stopped being angry and started being afraid. He was mopping the bar area around 11 a.m. Lunch service hadn't started yet. The dining room was empty except for Greg and a man Andre had never seen before. The man wore a charcoal suit, silver cufflinks, a watch that cost more than most of the staff made in a month. He sat across from Greg at the corner booth, the one Andre had picked out himself because it had the best view of Peachtree Street. They were talking low, leaning in. 2 men who didn't want to be overheard. Andre mopped slower, moved closer, kept his eyes on the floor. "So when do you think he'll sell?" the man asked. Greg swirled his glass, smiled like he'd already won. "Give it 2 more months. Revenue's already down 40%. Another 2 months of bad reviews, staff turnover, maybe a health code complaint or 2. He'll be bleeding so bad he won't have a choice." "And you're sure he won't figure it out?" Greg laughed. Not a nervous laugh. The confident kind. The kind that comes from someone who's been getting away with something for a very long time. "The guy checks in by phone once a month. I tell him what he wants to hear. He doesn't visit. He doesn't audit. He trusts me completely." Greg paused, took a sip. "That's his biggest problem." The man in the suit nodded, pulled a business card from his jacket, and slid it across the table. "Victor Ashland, Ashland Hospitality Group. When the price drops low enough, I'll make the offer directly. You deliver the property in the condition we discussed, and I'll make sure you're taken care of." "How taken care of?" 15% equity in the new concept, plus a signing bonus. You've more than earned it, Greg. They shook hands. Greg was grinning. Victor stood up, buttoned his jacket, and walked toward the exit. He passed within 2 feet of Andre. Looked right through him. The janitor didn't exist. Greg stayed at the booth, pulled out his phone, started typing, still smiling. Andre kept mopping. His hands weren't shaking anymore. His jaw wasn't tight. Something worse was happening now. Something quiet and cold was settling into his chest, like wet concrete hardening in real time. This wasn't just theft. This wasn't a manager skimming cash to pad his lifestyle. This was a plan, a coordinated operation to destroy his restaurant from the inside, tank the reviews, gut the food quality, drive out the best staff, bleed the revenue, month after month, until Andre Fletcher was desperate enough to sell his life's work for pennies on the dollar. And the man he trusted to protect everything was the one holding the knife. 15% equity. That was Greg's price for 12 years of Andre's life. Andre wheeled his cart back to the supply closet, closed the door, locked it. He called Elaine. I need you to look up a name, Victor Ashland. Ashland Hospitality Group. He heard her typing, fast. Got him. Victor Ashland. Owns a chain of mid-tier restaurant concepts across the Southeast. Atlanta, Charlotte, Nashville, Jacksonville. He's been expanding aggressively the past 2 years. Acquired 3 independent restaurants last year. All of them sold under financial distress. Financial distress? Yes, every single one. All 3 owners reported sudden drops in revenue, staff walkouts, and supply chain problems right before they sold. Sound familiar? Andre leaned his forehead against the closet wall, closed his eyes. They've done this before. It looks like a pattern, Andre. This isn't just your manager stealing from you. Ashland finds successful independent restaurants turns an existing manager or plants someone new, and they systematically destroy the business from the inside until the owner has no choice but to sell at a loss. Then, Ashland buys the location, rebrands it, and keeps everything that made it valuable. The space, the foot traffic, the kitchen. Andre was quiet for a long time. Andre, you still there? I'm here. Listen to me. This is bigger than embezzlement now. If Ashland has done this to 3 other owners, we're looking at fraud, conspiracy, possibly RICO territory. I'm looping in a colleague who handles federal cases, but I need 2 more days. Can you hold it together? Andre looked down at his janitor uniform, the same uniform he'd worn for 5 straight days. The uniform that made him a ghost in his own building. I've held it together this long. Don't change anything. Don't react to anything. And Andre, yeah, don't let him see you. Not the real you. Not yet. Andre hung up, unlocked the closet door, picked up his mop. 2 more days. Day 6. Andre changed tactics. He stopped watching from a distance. He started talking. Not as a boss, not as an investigator, as a janitor who cleaned the toilets and hauled the trash. The kind of person people say things to because they forget he matters. He found Derek first, the line cook. 4 years at Fletcher's table. Quiet guy, strong hands. The kind of cook who showed up early and left late without being asked. Andre was emptying the grease trap next to Derek's station. He kept his voice low. You been here long? Derek didn't look up from his cutting board. 4 years. It always like this? Derek's knife paused for half a second. Then it kept moving. No, it used to be good. Really good. Best job I ever had. Then Greg took over the day-to-day, and everything changed. Changed how? How do you think? Look at the schedule. Look at who gets the good shifts. Look at who gets yelled at and who gets high-fived. He scraped the diced onions into a container. I used to work Friday nights. $300 in tips. Greg moved me to Monday morning 6 months ago. No explanation, just a new schedule on the wall. You ever say anything? Derek finally looked at him. Dead eyes. The eyes of a man who stopped expecting things to get better. To who Greg runs everything, and every time someone pushes back, they're gone within a month. He doesn't fire you. He just makes it so bad you fire yourself. Andre nodded, said nothing, went back to the grease trap. He found Tommy next, the white busboy, 3 months in, 22 years old, the only white employee who looked uncomfortable with the arrangement. Andre caught him in the break room during the mid-afternoon lull. Can I ask you something? Tommy looked up from his phone, surprised. Nobody talked to the janitor. Sure. How'd you get the evening shift? You've only been here 3 months. Tommy's face changed, something between guilt and embarrassment. Greg put me there my first week. I didn't ask for it. He just said... Tommy stopped, looked at the door, lowered his voice. He said the evening shift needed people who matched the atmosphere. His exact words. I knew what he meant. I'm not stupid. Why didn't you say something? Because I need this job, and because the last guy who told Greg he was wrong got his hours cut to 6 a week until he quit. Tommy paused. But for the record, I hate it. I know why I'm out front and Derek's in the back. Everyone knows. We just can't do anything about it. Andre squeezed Tommy's shoulder once, said nothing, walked away. That evening, he found Patrice in the walk-in cooler again. This time, she was sitting on an upturned crate, staring at the wall. Not organizing, not prepping, just sitting. You okay? She looked up. Red eyes. Not crying past crying. The kind of exhaustion that doesn't have tears left. Greg told me today that if the next health inspection doesn't go well, he's putting me on probation. Probation, James. I've been here 6 years. I've never had a single complaint, not one. He's building a paper trail to fire me. Why would he want to fire you? Because I'm the last one who remembers what this place used to be. Before him. When Andre was here every day. When the food was real. When people actually wanted to work here. Her voice cracked. I keep thinking, if Andre knew what was happening, he'd stop it. But he doesn't know. And Greg made sure of that. Andre stood very still. He couldn't speak. If he opened his mouth, his voice would break, and she'd know. She'd know everything. He nodded once, walked out of the cooler, closed the door behind him gently. Then he went to the bathroom, locked the stall, pressed his palms against his eyes, and breathed until his chest stopped heaving. 6 years. Patrice had given 6 years of her life to his restaurant, and she still believed in him, in a version of him she hadn't seen in over a year. She was holding on because she thought Andre Fletcher would fix this if he knew. She was right. He was standing 10 feet away from her in a janitor's uniform, and she had no idea. That night, Andre sat in Elaine's office. The desk was covered in photographs, printouts, and a legal pad filled with notes. He'd brought everything: the recordings from his phone, the photos from Greg's office, the invoices, the LLC filing, and now something new. Signed statements. Derek signed his. Tommy signed his. Patrice signed hers. 3 employees, 3 witnesses. 3 people who trusted a janitor they'd known for 6 days more than a manager they'd worked under for a year. Elaine leaned back in her chair. This is enough. Embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, racial discrimination, hostile work environment. We've got paper, we've got testimony, we've got recordings. When? Monday morning. I've already filed the civil complaint under seal. My federal contact is reviewing the Ashland angle. We move at the staff meeting. Andre looked at the pile of evidence on her desk. A week's worth of dirt. A year's worth of damage. 12 years of his life laid out in documents and audio files. One more day. One more day. Then you take your restaurant back. Andre drove home, parked in his driveway, sat in the dark for 20 minutes. Tomorrow, he would put on that janitor uniform one last time, walk through the back entrance one last time, pick up that mop one last time. And then, Greg Holloway would find out who he'd been talking to all along. Monday morning, 7 a.m. Every employee at Fletcher's table was standing in the dining room. Greg had called the meeting himself. He stood at the front, next to the bar, arms crossed, chin up. The posture of a man who believed he was untouchable. Behind him, the morning light cut through the windows and lit up the room like a stage. Andre stood in the back corner, mop in hand, janitor uniform, head down. Just James, the invisible man. Greg cleared his throat. All right, listen up. I called this meeting because performance has been unacceptable. Revenue is down, reviews are in the gutter, and frankly, some of you aren't pulling your weight. He looked directly at the black employees, every single one of them. Patrice, your sauce has been inconsistent for months. I've told you 3 times. Patrice said nothing. She stared at the floor. Derek, your prep times are slow. You're costing us during rush. Derek clenched his jaw, didn't respond. And the new hires? Honestly, I don't know why I bother. Half of you can barely show up on time, let alone do the job right. He wasn't looking at the white servers. Not once. Not a single glance in their direction. Then Greg turned his head toward the back corner, toward Andre. And James, our janitor. He smiled, the cruel kind. Perfect example of what I'm talking about. Shows up, does the bare minimum, barely speaks. This is what I'm working with, people. This is what I have to manage every single day. The room was silent. 23 employees. Nobody moved. Andre set the mop down. The sound of it hitting the tile floor echoed through the dining room. Every head turned. He stepped forward, one step, then another. Slow, deliberate. Walking through the middle of the room past the servers, past the cooks, past Derek and Patrice, straight toward Greg. He stopped 6 feet away. Then he unzipped the janitor jacket, pulled it off, folded it once, set it on the nearest table. Underneath a black dress shirt, pressed, clean, the sleeves rolled to the elbows. On his left wrist, a watch. The watch every employee at Fletcher's table had seen 100 times in photos on the office wall. Andre Fletcher's watch. Greg's smile disappeared. My name isn't James. The words landed like a hammer on glass. My name is Andre Fletcher. I own this restaurant. I own these walls. I own the tables, the chairs, the sign outside with my name on it. And I have spent the last 7 days watching you try to steal every single piece of it. Greg's face went white. Not slowly, all at once. Like someone had pulled a plug and drained every drop of color from his skin. Andre, what are you— Don't talk. You're done talking. Andre turned to face the room. His voice was steady, controlled. The voice of a man who had rehearsed this moment in his car, in his bathroom, in a locked supply closet for 7 straight days. For the past week, I worked here as a janitor. I cleaned the bathrooms. I mopped the floors. I hauled the trash. And I watched. He paused. I watched everything. He pulled out his phone, held it up. I have recordings of this man referring to black employees as these people. I have recordings of him telling white servers that our clientele prefers a certain look out front. I have documentation showing he divided shifts by race. Black employees on mornings with no tips, white employees on evenings with full tips. Every week. For a year. Patrice's hand went to her mouth. Derek stood up straighter. Andre kept going. I have invoices showing he replaced every supplier I approved with a company called Valley Ridge Foods Grade C Meat Bottom Shelf Produce, while keeping the books at the original price point. The difference? $15,000 a month, going into an LLC called HG Hospitality, registered to Gregory P. Holloway. Greg took a step back. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. And I have a recording from this booth right here. Andre pointed at the corner booth by the window, of this man sitting with Victor Ashland discussing a plan to drive my revenue down until I was desperate enough to sell, in exchange for 15% equity in the new concept. The room erupted. Whispers became voices. Voices became shouts. Derek slammed his hand on the prep counter. Tommy stood up from his chair and stepped away from Greg like he was radioactive. Greg found his voice. Barely. This is entrapment. You set me up. None of this is legal. Entrapment is when law enforcement creates a crime that wouldn't have happened otherwise. Andre's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. I'm not law enforcement, Greg. I'm your boss. The one you told Victor Ashland doesn't know what he's doing. The one you said got lucky with a food truck. The one you said can't run a business. Greg's legs buckled. He grabbed the edge of the bar to steady himself. The front door opened. Elaine Porter walked in. Black blazer, leather briefcase. Behind her, 2 men in suits, one from her firm, one federal investigator. She walked straight to Greg, didn't slow down. Placed a manila folder on the bar next to his hand. Gregory Holloway, this is a notice of immediate termination for cause. Enclosed, you'll find a civil complaint for embezzlement, fraud, and workplace discrimination filed this morning in Fulton County Superior Court. A federal investigation into Ashland Hospitality Group's acquisition practices is also underway. You are named as a co-conspirator. Greg stared at the folder. Didn't touch it. I'd suggest you get a lawyer, Elaine said. A good one. 2 security guards Andre had hired over the weekend stepped forward, one on each side. They escorted Greg toward the front door. His legs moved like they'd forgotten how to walk. He didn't look back. didn't say a word. The door closed behind him. Silence. Then Patrice started clapping, softly at first. Then Derek joined in. Then Tommy. Then the dishwashers, the prep cooks, the hostess, the bartender. Every person in that room. Andre stood in the middle of his restaurant. The restaurant his grandmother dreamed about. The restaurant he built with his bare hands. The restaurant someone tried to take from him. He looked at Patrice. She was crying. Not the exhausted, beaten-down kind he'd seen in the cooler. The other kind. He looked at Derek. Derek nodded once. That was enough. Andre took a breath. The first real breath he'd taken in 7 days. Let's get back to work. The next 48 hours moved fast. Andre didn't sleep that Monday night. He sat at his desk, his real desk, in his real office, with the door open for the first time in a year, and made phone calls until 2 in the morning. The first call went to Harris Family Meats, the supplier he'd worked with for 9 years, the one Greg had cut loose with a form letter 4 months ago. Bill, it's Andre Fletcher. Silence on the other end, then a long exhale. Andre, I was wondering when I'd hear from you. You knew? I knew something was wrong. We got a termination notice out of nowhere. No call, no explanation, after 9 years. I tried reaching you. The number on file went to some guy named Greg, who told me the decision was final. Andre closed his eyes. I'm calling to ask you to come back. Already loading the truck. He made the same call to Dawson Produce and Southern Grain Company. Both said the same thing. Both had tried to reach him. Both had been blocked by Greg. All 3 agreed to resume deliveries by Wednesday. By Tuesday morning, the kitchen smelled different. Andre could tell the moment he walked in. Fresh thyme, real butter, prime beef hitting a hot grill. The sound and the scent he'd built his reputation on. Patrice was already at her station, working with ingredients she hadn't touched in 4 months. She didn't say anything when Andre walked past. She just looked up and nodded. There was color in her face again. Tuesday afternoon, Andre called a second staff meeting. This time he stood at the front. I owe all of you an apology. The room went quiet. I stepped away. I trusted the wrong person to take care of what we built together. And because of that, you suffered. Some of you were humiliated. Some of you were underpaid. Some of you lost people you worked alongside for years. That's on me. He paused, let the silence hold. But that's over now, and I want to make it right. He turned to Patrice. Patrice, you've held this kitchen together for 6 years. Through the worst of it, you never cut corners. You never changed the recipes. You never stopped caring, even when you had every reason to. He extended his hand. Head chef. Effective immediately, with a salary that matches the title. Patrice took his hand. Her grip was firm. Her eyes were wet. She didn't trust her voice, so she just nodded. Andre turned to Derek. Derek, 4 years. You showed up every morning, took whatever shift they gave you, and never once let the food suffer. Kitchen manager. You've earned it 10 times over. Derek stood up, took Andre's hand with both of his, held it for a long time. Didn't say a word. Didn't need to. Then Andre looked at Tommy, the 22-year-old busboy who could have stayed quiet and kept his comfortable shift and his easy tips, who could have looked the other way like everyone else with nothing to lose. Tommy, You told the truth when it would have been easier not to. That matters more than experience, more than seniority, more than anything on a resume. Shift lead. You'll train under Derek. Tommy's eyes went wide. He opened his mouth, closed it, then just said, "Thank you, sir." "Don't call me sir. Call me Andre." The room laughed. The first real laughter those walls had heard in a long time. Within 2 weeks, the reviews started turning. 4 stars, 4.5, then 5. "Fletcher's Table is back. The food is incredible again. I don't know what changed, but whatever it is, keep doing it. Best meal I've had in Atlanta in years. The brisket made me emotional, not exaggerating. Went back after a bad experience 3 months ago, completely different. The staff was warm, the food was perfect. This place has its soul back." Its soul. Andre read that one 3 times. Greg Holloway was formally charged with embezzlement and fraud in Fulton County. His LLCHG Hospitality was frozen pending investigation. His assets were seized. Victor Ashland's situation was worse. Elaine's federal contact had opened a multi-state investigation. 3 other restaurant owners came forward within a week, all with the same story. A trusted manager, a sudden decline, a low-ball offer from Ashland Hospitality Group. The pattern was identical. The FBI was building a case. Greg's attorney reached out twice to negotiate a settlement. Elaine declined both times. "We're not settling," she told Andre. "This goes on the record. Every single count." Andre agreed. Some things aren't for sale. 6 months later, Fletcher's Table opened its second location. Not a franchise, not an investor deal. Andre funded it himself with the money he recovered from Greg's frozen accounts and a small business loan he'd paid half of before the doors even opened. He chose the south side of Atlanta, the neighborhood where his grandmother raised him. The neighborhood where he used to ride his bike past boarded-up storefronts and dream about what could be there instead. Now, something was. Opening night, the line stretched around the block. Andre stood in the kitchen beside Patrice, plating her collard greens, the same recipe his grandmother whispered to him when he was 9 years old. The same recipe Greg's cheap ingredients had nearly destroyed. Patrice bumped his shoulder. "Your grandma would have loved this." Andre didn't answer right away. He looked through the kitchen window at the dining room. Every seat full. Families, couples, kids eating cornbread with both hands. Laughter so loud it bled through the walls. "Yeah," he said. "She would have." Derek was running the original location now. Kitchen manager had turned into general manager within 3 months. He'd earned it, not because of a schedule that favored him, but because he outworked everyone in the building, and every person there knew it. Tommy had moved up to floor manager at the new location. 22 years old, managing a team of 15. Andre told him on his first day, "You got this job because of who you are. Never forget that." Andre launched a program that fall. He called it Own Your Kitchen. Free workshops for independent restaurant owners, most of them black, most of them running their businesses alone, teaching financial literacy, fraud detection, supply chain auditing, and how to spot the signs of internal sabotage before it's too late. The first class had 14 owners. By the third session, there were 40. One of them pulled Andre aside after a workshop. How did you know something was wrong? Andre thought about it for a moment. I didn't. That was the problem. I trusted someone else to care about my business as much as I did, and nobody ever will. That's not cynicism. That's just the truth. Your name's on the door. You have to be the one who walks through it. The last image is this. Andre Fletcher standing in the kitchen of his second restaurant on a Friday night, apron on, sleeves rolled, sweat on his forehead, plating his grandmother's peach cobbler with his own hands. Not a janitor, not invisible, not for sale. Just a man who fought for what was his and won. If you were in Andre's shoes, how long would you have lasted before revealing yourself? 1 day? 3? Would you have made it all 7? Drop your answer in the comments. If this story hit you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you're not subscribed yet, you know what to do. Okay, so the biggest takeaway here, trust is earned, not given. Period. Nobody, and I mean nobody, will ever care about your dream the way you do. Stay involved. Stay present. Oh, and never underestimate the invisible people. They see everything. Just saying.